All right. Let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, we could hear you.
Oh, perfect. Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. Let me open this up here. If my computer is being very wonky, so I'm hoping that it just lets me proceed. Here we go. Okay, while that loads, here we go. Perfect. So let me put here. Oh, thank you, Sid. Yeah. Okay. It is chilly here. Blue skies, but it is cold. It is very cold. I'm glad we haven't had any snow yet, because I don't think I could handle that right now. Let's see here. I have arthritis, and I had a very young age diagnosis at 22 with arthritis, and every winter, as soon as it starts getting really cold, I start waking up with aches and pains, and my hands and my knees get the worst of it. All right, so let me get this set up. Wonderful. All right, welcome. Sorry, I had a pretty rough start this morning. So forgive me for the delay. The last couple days have been really rough. When I wake up, I'm in a lot of pain. I'm so sorry about that. But I was moving a little slower than I usually do. But this is a learning series. Oh, thank you. And my husband just gave me some matcha, so that's definitely helpful. Thank you. And with this series, we're always switching it up here. Classes, Q&As, plant clinics, and open forums. So today's an open forum. Anything goes. I do have a few things to show you. But other than that, I mean, it's open to questions. If anybody wants to dive into any specific subject matter at all, or if you want to share anything, by all means, just let me know. We can give you the floor. So no worries about that. And here you go. As requested, this is a Venmo link. This class is free, but if you would like, there's an option to give a tip. Of course, I'm grateful for anything, but this class is not monetized, so no worries about that. Not necessary. And the same with the Patreon as requested. The Patreon is set up there. Again, no pressure. If you would like to, again, much appreciated, but not necessary. And last thing, if you do want to reach out, info at Urban Garden is info at urbangarden.eco is the best email to reach me. And it's the same for my Instagram and for the website. We are actually looking for interns. If you know anyone, any high school students or college students, or it can be any age, if anyone is interested, we definitely need some help. I'm also the executive director for Herbalists Without Borders. It's an international nonprofit where we focus on health justice, access to herbal medicine, food sovereignty, basically all that falls under that umbrella. And we're also looking for volunteers and interns. There's so much work to go around. And if anyone is interested in any volunteer opportunities, please reach out. Always looking for help. Just please, thank you. If you could spread the word that we need volunteers. All right, let me stop that share there. And here we go. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Eloisa. Yeah, it's every winter. But the last like 2 winters, it wasn't too bad. My arthritis wasn't too bad the last 2 winters. And I don't know, this time it's they're starting to hurt again. And I don't know. I thought I was like, oh wow, I was having some good winters there, and I think they spoiled me. I think it's because they were mild, and now it looks. I mean, it's cold. It's cold, so I'm hoping this doesn't mean that this winter is going to be really bad here. Upstate in Buffalo, they got I think 6 feet of snow or something like that. We still haven't gotten any. I don't even want to think about it because my husband and I have to shovel if there is snow. So not looking forward to that. All right. Now, a few things I wanted to show was I did find some cool plants over the weekend. This guy was available just on a cart for $4, and the ivy. And so it's actually a hybrid, if I'm not mistaken, between Hedera helix, which is the English ivy, and Fatsia japonicus. And so they can actually breed them together, and they get this oddball plant that looks like a Fatsia in that it's tree-like, but then it has these very ivy-like leaves. It was very crispy, as you can see. So this is the time of year where Brian and I, and a lot of folks, we tend to stop getting plants because they're coming in on the trucks and they're damaged, right? From all the cold, all that. The cold is really getting to them. But this guy was just so pretty, and it has some new growth coming in, and I just decided, you know what, that's fine. I will keep it happy, and then the new growth will come in, and I won't mind the crispiness. It's not soft at all crispiness. It's really, you can hear it. It's very like crispy. So I'm not worried about rot at all. So yeah, I might cut them, but it's not very necessary. It's not affecting the rest of the leaf. But it's quite beautiful. It's quite beautiful. So I'll let you know how that goes. And then I saw that they had a bunch of peperomias, and so I got this peperomia, a Peperomia rossi. This one was very damaged by the cold, but nothing that can't be again cleaned up. So here the middle part is doing really well, and these actually are the flowers. So if you've never seen peperomia flowers, this is what they look like. They look like little rat tails. Now this again exposed to extreme cold. So look at these flowers here. They're just dangling. So it had a couple leaves that were completely dead. There's some discoloration here on these leaves at the base, but they're not rotting. And I put it here by the grow lights, and it perked up. So it's looking a lot better. I was just letting these, I wasn't sure which flowers were really gonna die off, and these perked up. So I think I'm just gonna remove these. But really beautiful, gorgeous undersides. Look at that. that really pink, really like magenta undersides of those leaves. They're usually a little darker, so they're this kind of green here. But again, there's some discoloration here. So again, the really cheap, the really cheap rack. They came out to like $4. So I have a few years ago, I bought one of those, a Peperomia Russo, Rossi? No, Rossi. I think it's a Rossi. For $15. So $4, not bad. They're very easy to overwater. I learned that the hard way. So this is my second attempt. Then I spotted this peperomia. There was quite a few peperomia at Home Depot and Lowe's. They just got a big shipment of peperomias. But this is also a peperomia. It's a ripple, also slightly damaged, $4. So I was like, this is absolutely gorgeous, the color. But the cups, the little leaves are very cup-like. There are peperomias that form into those little cups. And I really liked it. It was just different. So some damage, got to clean it up. But otherwise, I mean, I absolutely love it. I think it's really pretty, and it's really gorgeous burgundy. Same color underneath here. It's just like more glossy on top. But really pretty. These guys also much thirstier than other peperomias. I love peperomias. When I first really got got my own home and started really collecting what the plants I wanted to. I grew up in a home with my mom, of course, having plants, but when I said, okay, this is what I want to collect, was euphorbia, ripsalis, and peperomias. And I have quite a few peperomias, but I really like succulent peperomias. So this is a peperomia. So these guys are in the same family, but they look very different. And so then this is a new growth coming in here. And it has this little window here. Absolutely amazing looking peperomia. And I have another peperomia here. The graveolens, also a peperomia. But again, very succulent. It does not look like a typical peperomia. That would not occur to most folks that's a peperomia. But really love these guys. I love the oddball peperomias, definitely. And of course the succulents, and those do great there. I treat them exactly the way I do the other succulents. They get watered about every 2 weeks, and they're fine under the grow light, perfectly fine. We don't have to worry about that. I highly recommend those if you haven't tried them. The ripples, these guys can be a little testy, so if you can get them cheap and kind of experiment with them, they do get very thirsty very quickly, depending on how warm your home is. So these do tend to need to get watered about every week or so. They will also faint if they're not getting enough hydration. But the problem is if you let them faint too much to the point where they're completely flat, even when you water them, a lot of those stems won't go back. Yeah, so you kind of have to figure out just when to water them to keep that from happening, because then it just, yeah, it's a mess. But yeah, when I see those though, and it's like, under $5, I like to grab them, play with them, see what works, what doesn't. Let me try again. I highly recommend doing so. Experiment. Gabby, any recommendations on how to care for a potted rose and a potted hydrangea and a potted boxwood for the winter? Unfortunately, I can't take them in. Okay, great. Yes, so all of these should be perfectly fine over the winter. Now with the rose and the issue with pots though, the issue with pots is that when the roots are under the soil, they have a little bit more insulation, essentially. So this tends to protect them from absolutely freezing. Not always the case, of course, but it tends to lean towards that that way. When it's in a pot, though, it's above ground, so it's much more exposed. The pot itself can get very, very cold, and this can cause those roots to freeze, making a plant that would otherwise be a perennial, which is just going to keep coming back year after year, can end up turning that into an annual where it doesn't survive the winter and you basically have to get another plant the upcoming year. For boxwoods, I think that should be fine. There are plenty of boxwoods. They're pretty hardy. I don't think you really have to worry about the boxwood. But for the rose and the hydrangea, perhaps if you would be able to somehow just add some protection to the pot, perhaps some folks do put like plastic bags, things like that, just something to protect them a little bit. But they should be fine. They should overwinter fine. I don't know how cold this winter is going to be. The fact that I'm already feeling my joints are already like not in a good place makes me really nervous. I think that it's going to be a really, really heavy duty winter. But yeah, I think so. Maybe some insulation on the pots themselves, wrapping them. Some folks do also put plastic over the plant itself, so they cover them in black plastic. That can potentially help with the heat of the sun. It ends up kind of warming that plastic as well, but keeping it from drying out so much because it's not being hit by the wind. So it might be a little bit helpful, but they should be okay. They should be okay. I'm just hoping it's not too bad this winter. Oh, you're welcome, Gabby. Yeah, I'm really hoping. It's making me nervous. And it's weird because a lot of plants are still, I think, very confused. We have quite a few trees that haven't lost their leaves yet that are deciduous in the area here. There's still plants that are in flower. So I think everything's a little skewed. So it is worrisome. And, when these types of things happen, I like to, I still lead walks for my students here in New York City during the winter months. I love to do winter plant ID. It's a great way, right? If you don't have the leaves, if you don't have fruit, there are some trees, some plants that will retain their fruit throughout the winter. But many don't. And so it's a great excuse to get out there and try to learn other ways to identify these plants, right? Their seed heads, their bark, overall growth habit. So their kind of overall shape of the branching. Also leaf scars as well. So many ways to do that. And I like to make sure that I introduce folks to the concept of phenology. And so phenology are these patterns that you see in nature. And it's these patterns of repetition, basically, the changing with the seasons, right? So the blooming periods, and then when the insects kind of wake up, the pollinators wake up and start breeding and start pollinating. So all of these patterns are synced up over millions of years. They've really synced up. And what happens when, like right now, where the weather patterns are kind of changing, they're unstable, with they're being exacerbated by climate change, what ends up happening is that pattern goes off track. And so this can be very dangerous. because then plants might bloom early and then close. So when the insects come out to pollinate and feed, there's no food. It can also mean that if some plants are delayed in flowering and then the insects have already kind of gone into hibernation for the weekend, for the winter, I think we all want to hibernate on the weekends, but to hibernate for the winter, you end up having flowers that then flower after too late, and then they miss their chance to get fertilized and to produce seeds for that season. So yeah, it's really it's getting crazy. So we'll see what happens. I'm very apprehensive about this winter. So something else I wanted to show you. So Brian had gotten a free hab. So for those of you who don't know what a free hab is, it's when you get a plant for free. Usually you purchase some plants and then someone will say, oh yeah, take this free hab. And so a free hab is a free rehab, a free rehab plant. And so essentially it's a plant that really needs some love. It needs some TLC. And so the seller is just willing to give it to you for free because they don't have the time to invest in caring for that, right? Maybe they have enough plants to deal with. So Brian got this free hab. I think it's a mamey, a philodendron mamey. And it was looking a little rough. It had some really crispy leaves, and then it started to put out a new leaf, and it looked really great. And so yesterday I was removing some of the leaves that we had left on to finish kind of dying off. And I saw it has mealybugs. And so I was gonna clean it off, and then I said, hold on. So it was already isolated. So it's still in its little isolation, but I'm gonna bring it to see if the camera can catch it, just as an educational opportunity. So we haven't had the only thing I had with mealybugs recently was my dragon fruit, which is in my bedroom, that I unleashed ladybugs on. But this guy, let's see if the camera can catch it. Let's see. You can see some of that. So you see some of those white specks here and here. You can kind of see them there. Let's see if you can see any more. Oh, there we go. You can see the white. Oh, I think here too, you can see these little guys right here. And so what do? So I figured, I was like, well, since I found this last night, I said it'll be fine overnight in its location, and I can then use this as an educational opportunity. So with mealybugs, so if you're not familiar with mealybugs, you've never seen them ever, they're these little white cottony insects that are related to scale bugs. And so essentially they kind of cement themselves into the females, especially. They kind of settle into one area and they just keep producing babies, but they just suck out all of your plants' sugars. And they create these nests. And so these nests are just really white and cottony. And so there's just very, very visible, like it's something that you see and you notice rather quickly. Now this looks like it's just really taking hold, so it's something you can deal with and the plant's going to be fine. If you don't check your plants often, this is when it can become a full-on issue. So the reason I didn't even see these is because I didn't see them until I took off the dead leaves. So it had some dead leaves. He had a leaf here and it had a leaf here. And the leaves were really, really not looking good when he picked it up. So I just let them kind of die back. So they got crispy. This leaf was coming out and opening up. So I was just letting it be. It has another leaf on the way over here. So it wasn't until I took that off that then I noticed the bugs here. So they like to nestle themselves right where the leaves come in contact with the stem itself. And so what do you do? What do you do, right? You have this situation. So one thing you can do is first, if you'd like, you can take this to your sink, get a little bit of dish soap, try a non-degreasing dish soap, try to have one on hand so that in these type of situations you have one you have one handy. But I mean, if it's an emergency, a teensy little bit like a drop of Dawn dish soap isn't going to be horrendous, but you just don't want to keep using that. So non-degreasing is best. Something like Myers or even Castile soap is great. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take the plant, you're going to tilt it, and then you're going to wet your hand, put like that one drop of soap, kind of massage the plant, really kind of massage the plant, but you're trying to tilt it so you're not getting soap on the soil. You don't want to get soap on the soil, but it'll kind of like a little massage, really get in there, get under the leaf, really get in there, and then rinse it off. And then you can go back, sit down, again, away from other plants, use a cotton swab with some rubbing alcohol, and then go over the stem and really make sure you're catching any potential stragglers. You might not be able to see them yet, but they are definitely there. So you're going to kind of go in all these little crevices with some rubbing alcohol in order to potentially kill anybody that's left over. And then that's not it. So you're going to repeat this process for at least 6 weeks. Now, 10 weeks is better. 10 weeks is better, but 6 weeks at the minimum. So once a week for 6 weeks, you're going to repeat that just to make sure that the infestation doesn't return and doesn't take hold. You don't want the situation to get worse. So this guy seems pretty unbothered. It has that new leaf that came in. It actually started putting out a baby here at the base. So it doesn't seem like it's too affected. When we received it, it was already looking rough. We did not see any bugs on it. But it's not getting worse. So I think we found it just in time and we can just easily deal with it. Other things too is we use ladybugs. We just picked up more yesterday. And so let me see, are these, oh, there you go, they're moving. And so we like to release these as well, and they will lead also any stragglers or anything that's on our plants as well. So that's a great preventative. But if you don't want bugs in your house, either maintaining that type of treatment regimen with the soap and the alcohol. Other folks try to also use like sprays, but I just advise against sprays because most of the time they can end up actually harming the plant. So, at least it has a leaf, it's able to collect some light and feed itself. But if I were to damage that leaf, it goes back to just being a stub, and then it can go either way. So as long as I can keep that leaf going, it's easier for it to continue to put out growth. I'm gonna put this back in isolation. I don't want to really set it on my desk. I don't need anybody around here to get mealybugs either. But that was, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna leave it so that I can show everyone what it looks like. I just got this seat. It's a ergonomic chair, so I can kind of like change positions. I can have my knees up and stuff, and so I'm still getting used to it. It's much more comfortable than a regular chair, but it's still a little weird to get used to. Hank, I tried 2 places near me for ladybugs, but they said they only have them in the spring, which I thought was odd since the mealybugs that they attack come out during dry indoor conditions during the winter. If I get ladybugs in the spring, would it be too late for them to eat the mealybugs? Yes, it would be too late if you let the mealybugs run rampant during the winter. They can do a lot of damage. I mean, I guess maybe the store itself only picks them up in the spring. Right now, due to the cold, it's much more difficult because they do die in the cold. So it could be that the shop didn't want to make the investment in purchasing them and then having them potentially arrive dead because of the temperatures. Our shops are still selling them. And so we continue to pick them up as long as we can. So it looks like our shop is still carrying them. You can also order them, but it is very expensive. We had to order some because there were none. It was like in August, July, August, something like that. And then they wanted it was like $25 in shipping, something like that, almost $30 in shipping, and they were only 15, so the shipping was much more expensive than the actual ladybugs. So so it could just be that it could be that the shop they don't want to risk receiving dead ladybugs because of the cold. And so they only carry them in the spring, which is really unfortunate, but it would be too late, definitely. If you have an active infestation, then yes. If you just wanted them to kind of be there preventatively, as long as you're looking at your plants and you're catching anything, they'll be fine. But if you have an active infestation, and you're not handling it right, then it could definitely get really out of hand, and then could also spread to your other houseplants over the winter. What about rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip and dabbing the alcohol on the mealybugs? Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, you can do that too. I like the manual washing because it gets rid of a lot in one in one foul swoop. It also helps with the nests. But yes, and then after you go over with alcohol. So definitely you can use a Q-tip. Once you actually come into contact with the mealybug, it's actually cool. It turns black. It just goes from white and you just see it like it just changes. It just because the alcohol kills it on contact. And so, which is great because you might not see the mealybug, right? And then when you're actually going over or even spraying the alcohol, they start changing color. So you're like, whoa, I didn't even see those mealybugs there. So that's a really cool indicator to kind of show you. Sometimes you don't see them, especially the young. They can almost be transparent or green. So it really blends in really well with the plant. And so you're looking at it and you're none the wiser. And it's not until you're spraying it or rubbing it with alcohol that you see it change color. And then that's to let you know that that's on there. That's why I like to go around, and every time I water my plants, I do spray them with 70% alcohol, with rubbing alcohol. And just in case, but that's been an indicator in the past. That's how I found out I had mealybugs on my dragon fruit. Was I just sprayed it and I saw little black dots and I was like, what? Why is that happening? And then I realized that it had mealybugs on it. And then I started treating it. So yeah, definitely recommend that. And I recommend really having a little spray bottle with some rubbing alcohol. I use it straight. I don't dilute my rubbing alcohol. You can absolutely, if you'd like, and definitely do a test spot on your plants. I've never had any bad reaction from plants with rubbing alcohol. I've sprayed it on begonias, on staghorn ferns, on things that are really with delicate foliage, and I've never had a problem. But every plant is different. So you can do a test spot, see if your plant didn't mind it, and then and then, have that as a preventative. Yeah, I like to do that when I have my plants in front of me. I water them. I check them. Do I have to remove any leaves? Do I have to clean any leaves? Check the soil. Do I have to kind of replenish anything? And then I go ahead and end with a spray. And then when I put it back in its spot, I do a quarter rotation. So I kind of do everything that I need to do with the plant when I do give them water. I just do whatever care I need to do, because we have such a large collection. And so that's just when I have it in front of me. So if you do have a collection, for some folks, having even a collection of like 30 plants is a lot for them, right? They have a very busy life that can be overwhelming. And so it doesn't matter how large your collection is. I really do recommend kind of doing it that way. It just kind of keeps you more sane. With us, we have over 300. So yeah, trying to make sure that you have these systems in place on how to take care of your plants, different ways of understanding, okay, to water them, to check on them, and to keep potential infestations from spreading. Because when you do have that many plants and you have them grouped together, something like spider mites or thrips, which ran through our office space here and then attacked some of our philodendrons and over here in our living room. And our poor palm Delilah, she lost so many leaves, but she's putting out a bunch of new leaves. But right now she looks very naked. But the ladybugs definitely did their work. They were really all over Delilah. And Delilah, she was a rescue palm from my old office. And she needed help and she was going to go into the garbage. And so we rescued her. And yeah, and I love her, but now she's naked. She has, I think, 1, 2, 3, she has 4 leaves right now, like 4 fronds. The rest of it is just bare, but she's putting out new fronds. So she'll get back to her former glory. But yeah, she is not looking very very good right now. And the thrips really, really attacked her. She is a bamboo palm. And yeah, they went to town. Oh, so yeah, poor girl, but she'll bounce back. She'll bounce back. I actually have to take this week to also move a couple plants around because now the heater is on. So I live in an apartment building, and here in New York City, they only turn on the heat if it's under 55. And it only turns on at night. So you don't get heat during the day unless it's like absolutely freezing. You only get heat at night. And so I have some of my plants that were located very close to our heaters. So I have to move those guys around because even though they're like apuntias, they're like cacti, but I just don't want them to get burned. So I have to do some plant Tetris. And so and yeah, so I'm gonna have to move some of these guys around. Yeah, and I mean the plants are still putting out growth, still happy. So we're gonna keep it like that, and we're gonna be going away in a few weeks. And so we're gonna leave my sister-in-law here with a bunch of instructions. And so I'm so nervous because I've never left the plants alone for that long. So we'll see. We will see. But yes. And the last thing I really wanted to show you was, so I think a few of you had seen Brian, my husband, found a seller that was selling leaf cuttings of a Thai monstera, a Thai constellation. So it's very common that when you buy a 1 leaf cutting, the leaf starts to die back. That's completely normal. So that's not the worry. You want to keep the node happy, right? The node is where the plant growth is coming out of. So that's what you want to keep happy. Now, when he had picked it up, the seller had wrapped all of the roots in sphagnum moss. And so at first we were like, okay, well, that was probably fine. It helped it keep it from drying out. But I was a little bit worried, right? Because of all that and it was sopping wet. So maybe all that extra moisture might not be the best thing. But it's better than letting your roots dry out, I guess. So we had put it into a really well-draining mix that was predominantly wood bark, cocoa coir, perlite, some leca in there. Pretty quick drying mix. But it just wasn't looking, it was fine for a while. It was fine for a while. And then about like Thursday or so, Wednesday, Thursday, it started kind of, the leaf itself started yellowing. So we figured, well, again, normal if the leaf were to die back. But it looks like the roots, over the weekend, we saw that the roots are actually not doing very well. So we took it out. We were letting some of those roots kind of dry, the rotten roots dry out, so that we can save the node. So I wanted to show you what that looks like. Hold on. So that's what I tend to do is, I always tell my husband, I was like, oh, this would be a great learning opportunity for everyone. So here's the leaf. So you can see it's already starting to yellow, right? But again, very common when you get a leaf cutting, transplant shock, so many things. It starts to die off. Now this is the node. Look at that. That is a big node. That is huge. Look at that. So the node is fine. It's healthy. The roots, though, these were not doing very well. So these were all kind of like jelly-like. So we took it out and we said, okay, let's let it kind of dry out. Because one, it's better to have the dehydrated one right now than in this case. Let's just do it. So these dried out, so they're no longer actively rotting. So now we can snip these off and basically start over again. And so we're going to snip off these dead roots. These are completely dead, but they're so large that it's so cool to be able to actually show you. So you see there's a sheath around the roots, so it's hollow. And then this is protecting the vessels that are inside. Super cool to see because they're just so large. Here you go. So you can just see, super cool. But these are all going to be chopped off, and we're just going to start with a clean node. And we're going to let the leaf die back, so any potential like nutrients, anything like that can just not go to waste. But you can see where it calloused. So here's where it was chopped, but you can actually see some of the fibers here of the vessels. But this is the biggest chunk I've ever had. So this is really cool. But as long as this is safe, and doesn't rot, it's fine. More growth will come out. It's fine. As long as this is safe. If this is not safe, if this starts to feel gooey or turns, like this is due to the drying, it's fine. But if it starts to really change color, starts to get soft, then you have to worry, right? Because this is the only node that you have on the plant. And so that's not you have to worry. I actually think that there's technically 2 nodes on here. So this bottom part is a node, so roots were coming out from down here, but this node might be spent. So the growth might not be coming from this base anymore, but it is going to come from up here. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, you can cut that. And so we're gonna wait and see. Wait and see. Do you cut them off at the nodes themselves? With the roots? I mean, you can get as close as you can get. So yeah, I try to get I start to chop off with scissors the farthest away and then kind of work myself close with that. So yes, you can totally do that. You just don't want to mess with the actual node tissue. Because those are all the healthy cells, all the growth, and you don't want to mess with that. So yes, get as close as you can to the node. Sometimes when the roots are this dehydrated, it just kind of comes right off. So that's helpful. But we just as soon as Brian saw that the roots were kind of like soggy, I was like, yeah, the best course of action, just pull it out and let it dry out. Just stop the rot in its tracks. Because yeah. Why didn't you cut the dead parts? Good question. So, well, it was in the middle of the night. It was in the middle of the night. And Brian was like, oh my gosh, I think it's really soft. So let's just, so I was like, I just pull it out, just take it out of the pot. And yeah, and then it actually started drying out very quickly. So, but yes, if it's a regular during the regular daylight hours and you're not in bed, yes, you can totally bring it over to the sink and just cut them off immediately. But yes, we just kind of, it was in the middle, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I just told Brian to just take it out of the soil and put it into a thing to let it air dry a little bit, to see how bad the extent of the root rot was. But then it was already like dry when I got up and was checking on it. So I just left it like that for now, to let it continue drying out. And yeah, and so far so good. So I have to chop that. So let's see. But yeah, this propagating. We have a bunch of little nodes too. Let me see, I can actually grab them because they're right here. So I was actually watering these yesterday because we have fish tank water, which we use. And so here are some of them. This is Brazil. Hold on, maybe you could see here. We have some philodendron Brazils here. You can see they have a lot more neon green than the darker green. There's some here with some green. There's activated charcoal in here because it helps feed the springtails that we put in here. What else is in here? We have some burl marks. There's some skinned abscess nodes. There's a philodendron rugosa. And they're starting to get some growth. And then I even have some cacti in here that are rooted, so I can't pull it out. Yeah, I have quite a few of these little prop boxes like this, and I just dropped these little nodes in there. This was I think here, it's hard to see, here we go. Oh yeah, it's hard for the camera to pick up. But this little guy here is a Syngonium albo. It was a freebie that someone gave me. But yeah, you can set up these little prop boxes and yeah, just oh bless you. And then go to town. You end up just making so many little plants. Irene, the orchid flower stem, once the flowers fall off. Do you cut the stem way at the bottom or just leave the stem alone and wait for the next bloom? Also, can I bunch a lot of different colored orchids into one pot so that when they bloom, they would be different colors in one pot? Good questions. So for the first part of the question, about cutting the stem, so I would keep the stem until the stem actually starts to die. So sometimes you can get multiple blooms from one stem. I think my image froze. So you can get multiple blooms from one stem. So you can totally leave it and then see if you'll get another flush, basically another bloom. Now if the stem is starting to just die off and starting to dry out and you're like, okay, nope, it's spent, it's done with its life cycle, you can absolutely go all the way to the bottom and cut it off. That's totally fine. But I would just say to make sure till the actual stem is actively like dying or dehydrated. Sometimes it just starts to dry out and die off. Rather than don't cut a healthy stem because you can potentially get another bloom. Now, in terms of a bunch of different color orchids, absolutely, if you wanted to, if they are all the same species with the same care requirements, you can kind of put them together if you'd like. That might be easier too, because they're all in one place, and if they all require the same care, you can absolutely do that. And if they're the same species, then that means they're triggered by the same things to bloom. So like Phalaenopsis, the moth orchids, they actually tend to start blooming now in the winter. As soon as it starts getting really cold, they start to bloom. So it's usually like October, November, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. As soon as it's like fall into winter, folks have their Phalaenopsis start blooming. So, but yeah, so you can absolutely do that if you wanted to. Absolutely. Brenda, my daughter wants grow lights that are on flexible strips to hang underneath the shelves. Do you have any recommendations? Oh yeah, absolutely. I use so they're not, so I haven't seen flexible strips. I know there are just strips that are stick-on that come in different sizes that go under the shelves. And yes, I use those and I love them. But I think she's talking about like the Flexalights, like the ones that you use for LEDs, that it's like a long roll of lights that are fully flexible. I haven't seen that yet for plants. At least I'm not aware. If anyone is, definitely let me know. But for grow lights, I personally have used strip lights that come with like it's like a sticky tape, and then I hang them under my shelves. And I use those, which I love because they're on timers. And I can set them up. I can also change the brightness level, all that jazz, which I appreciate. Let me see if I can pull that up. 1 second. Let's see. And what was I think I got him on Amazon. Let me see my orders. Lights. There we go. So I'm dropping that link in the chat and then I'll share real quick. So these are the ones that I like to get. And so I've actually ordered these a few times in the past. So I have them on my carts, on my rolling carts that I have plants on. I have them in my plant cabinet. I have them in my bedroom for some of my succulent wall-mounted shelves. So yeah, I have quite a few of these, and I really, really like them. So I do definitely recommend these, but they are not flexible. So that they're short, which means, you know, it's great because they fit in various places. I can either put two continuously or I can put one. But yeah, I haven't heard of like actual flexible lights, that in terms of a strip being flexible. But these are great if that's a potential option. But no, I'm not aware of any flexible strips. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. But these are great, really inexpensive. And some of these I've had, I think I bought like my first ones in like 2019. And they're still working. I haven't had to replace any of them. So they're great. They're great. And the plants are very happy under them. I just get that full spectrum, the full spectrum types. And yeah, and these are set up on a timer. They're lovely. So I definitely recommend that. But no flexible ones right now. Let me see. Oh. Oh, and then something else I forgot. I have it behind my computer. Something else I found also for $4 was this staghorn fern. So there's two in here. So I already have staghorn ferns, but I love staghorn ferns. I love how they feel. I just love their look. So there's two in here. And they actually have these in soil. But so far it looks like it's happy. So I'll let it acclimate and then potentially take it out and mount it on something. Maybe make like a kokedama, which is it's like a little ball of moss. Let me see here. Kokedama. Here we go. Just in case folks don't know what I'm referring to. So basically this. So I actually have one of these. But I tried it. I bought this exact one and it was a 2-pack. So these are like ready made. And I tried one and it got full of mold. Absolutely full of mold. A nightmare. So I tossed it out and now I have one left, but I mean, they're completely dry when you get them and then you're told to soak them and then, you know, put some, your plant and some substrate. So I had tried one full of mold. So I have another one just sitting there, all dry. But yeah, so that's but this is how you're going to be basically. So this is what's basically happening here is you're putting the plant into this ball of moss. And so this works great for plants that are epiphytic or plants that prefer, it can be both, because if you keep it relatively wet, then these are plants that like wet feet, or you can let it completely dry out for plants that like, you know, like are epiphytic, like to dry out between waterings. I wouldn't recommend this for succulents. I'm seeing that somebody used it for succulents here. It might work for a couple weeks, but eventually either the succulents are going to be wet for too long and they're going to start to rot, or if you let it completely dry out, they might actually dehydrate relatively quickly. So I don't think succulents are the best option for kokedamas. But things like ripsalis, staghorn ferns, the philodendrons work really well. I think it's worth orchids, even some orchids really like this kind of setup. So yeah, I'm going to experiment, but I think I'm going to make one from scratch versus using those ready-made ones. I think it was way too dense, and it just wasn't drying. And so the plant was not doing well. And when I took it out, I could just see that there was a bunch of mold. So yeah, I'm not going to use that one. I'm not going to use that one again. I'm just going to, yeah, do one from scratch. But it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. Oh, Boston ferns. Boston ferns, I mean, they are relatively thirsty plants. So it really depends on how quickly they're drying out in your home. But you can easily end up watering them at least once a week. Really. So if it's slightly cooler in your home and maybe not as bright, it might be a little less often, maybe a little over a week, but I think a week tends to be the frequency with a Boston fern. They don't like to completely dry out. So yeah, but Boston ferns are absolutely beautiful. Let me see, just in case, folks. Boston fern. Oh yeah, here's some images. Hold on, I had stopped the share. There we go. Yeah, look at these lovelies. Absolutely beautiful. They're such a beautiful fern. Such a lovely fern. I actually saw I think it was a variegated one. I think it was a variegated Boston fern. Let me see if it was Instagram. Where? Oh, there we go. Me. There we go. Yeah. Oh, it's a Boston tiger fern. Yeah, so they call this one, this is the variegated variety. Absolutely beautiful. I did not buy it. I can only keep like certain types of ferns alive. I think the ones that are incredibly thirsty, I can't keep up with them. And so I don't tend to keep them, but this one was absolutely beautiful. But then I had someone mention that there's reverted, which is unfortunate. So it seems that it's not it's just a type of mutation. It's not a stable type of variegation, which is really unfortunate, but quite beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it was a very large one as well, so absolutely beautiful. And maybe one day I think I need to have my house with my greenhouse at that time in order to keep ferns very, very happy. Yeah, I think our home, it's mostly epiphytes. We got philodendrons. I have Hoyas here, Hoyas up there. Oh, this is another philodendron. There's ripsalis and all types of succulents. Yeah, but I don't know, ferns. Only a couple ferns. I have not Boston's. I have staghorn ferns. I have a bird nest fern, and I have a crocodile fern. But yeah, those are the only ferns that I that I keep. And they're just a little bit hardier, and so I think they're just able to keep up with our watering schedule. But yes, Hank, they tend to get pretty thirsty, so I would say usually it's about every week or so. Oh, and for next week, so I wanted to do a class, like more of a class focus, but honestly, I was not sure what, like out of ideas, what can I, so if anybody has any requests, throw them in the chat. And if anyone wants any, class specifically on a certain topic, or if they're topics that are related, then I can potentially talk about all of those during the class. So definitely, if you have any anything that you'd like me to kind of focus on, yeah, let me know, and then I can I can talk about that. Oh, Brenda, growing herbs and fruit trees inside. Sure. Okay, yeah, I can talk about that. Oh, Hank, should you water geraniums that you bring inside for the winter? Yes, absolutely. You can water them. It's just less frequent watering, but yes, you can definitely bring them inside. Absolutely. And yes, you would want to water them. So for all plants that are being brought in during the winter, because you want to keep them from absolutely freezing, then yeah, definitely water them. You're just going to be watering them less often, but yes. Oh no, Brenda, somehow I kill herbs indoors. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. Some different herbs that you can grow indoors. And there's some cool tools things like that. My neighbor has an arrow garden. And so she grows basil like year round. It's like January and she has fresh basil. um so but yeah, there's cool things like that. But yeah, you can definitely grow herbs indoors, but sometimes you do need those supplemental tools, like lighting and things like that. So I can totally talk about that. In terms of fruit trees inside, yes, as well. Yeah, to quickly touch on that, I mean, I have quite a few clients here in New York City that have trees inside. So I think lemons, and I know someone who is keeping a cherry tree indoors, but they're mostly types of lemons that my clients have. And they need light. They need a lot of light. So you do have to set up a grow light for those plants, for the fruit trees, and then a well draining soil, like a palm or citrus tree mix works really, really well. You don't want them to sit there in wet soil, in muddy soil. You want a lot of gas exchange, definitely. Oh yes, Adeline, exactly. So that's why we rotate. So it's class, and then Q&A, then plant clinic, and then open forum. So it rotates like that. So today was the open forum, so next week is class. So yes, absolutely. So we do get at least one plant class per month, but I've been so tired. My brain is very exhausted. And with the arthritis, it's just been and so I was like, I honestly had no idea what to teach next week. So yeah, recommendations definitely help. Yeah, I'm definitely oof. And I actually just got an under desk treadmill too, because it's so cold, and we like to go outside to walk. But if my arthritis is this bad pretty early on, unlike the last couple winters that I was able to keep doing my walks and stuff outside, I don't know if I'm going to be able to comfortably. So So we got a little treadmill that goes under our desk. And so yeah, so we can keep, doing our walking and stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see. I wanted to start up my bird watching in Central Park for the winter. You get some really cool species that actually come here to overwinter. So they come from areas that are much colder. And for them, this is warmer. so, so they come and hang out here for the winter and then go back. And so there's some really, really cool species. I really love bird watching. But if I'm kind of worried about my joints at this point. Yes, and geraniums. So Adeline saying that geraniums do great in the winter. They need a little time to climatize to new climate, but getting closer to spring, they explode in size and start the flowering process. It's great. And Betty, maybe how to care for little balsam trees and Christmas cacti that are now in stores. Oh yeah, absolutely. Holiday cacti are definitely now in stores. As we get closer, so next week, I think next week is already Thanksgiving. Oh, this week is Thanksgiving. Can see where my brain is. This week is Thanksgiving. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's this week. Yeah, you're gonna start seeing the Thanksgiving, if you haven't already. Yeah, the Thanksgiving cacti are out and about. And then for Christmas, those are also going to be out. Yeah, there are Thanksgiving cacti, Christmas cacti, and Easter cacti. And so these are all related, except the Easter cacti they're all Schlumbergia, that's the genus, but then Easter cacti got reclassified. But it's still in the same family, it's no longer in the same genus. And so, well, they're related. I think they're in the same order, I should say, and no longer in the same family. But yeah, the Christmas cacti and the Thanksgiving cacti, they get triggered by the lessening of light and the cooler temperatures. And so that's what triggers them to start to flower. For Easter cacti, it's the opposite. It's when the light starts to increase day by day. So in the spring, and it starts to warm up a little bit. That's what triggers them to flower. So they tend to flower during these holiday seasons, and so they got associated with those names. But cacti, so they are cacti, but they're epiphytic. And the leaves are definitely different. Yes, absolutely. They are definitely different. And the flowers too. The flowers are also very different. But yeah, so I can definitely talk about that too. Not a problem. So I can cover some different topics then next week. So what I'll do is I'll talk about the holiday cacti, how to care for them, how to tell them apart, and then I can do a little section on growing herbs, some herbs that you can grow indoors. If it is winter for you, so as long as you have those extra tools, if your home can be kept relatively warm, pretty like over 70, if you have grow lights, and you should be able to grow them during the winter. But if you're trying to grow them by your window, in the winter would be very difficult. Something you can potentially grow that doesn't mind the cooler weather or the less light, something like chives. Chives doesn't mind too much. That's something you can definitely grow in cooler temperatures. Laura Jane, my Thanksgiving cactus is blooming like gangbusters. That's great. They are quite beautiful. They're very long-lived plants. There are holiday cacti that can live well over 100 years old. So it's wonderful. I actually just got somebody actually sent me, whoops, I love when I receive cuttings and things like that. Hold on. But I got, here we go. I got some succulent cuttings. So this guy already is rooting. So this is like a big echeveria. Oh, hard to see. There we go. Already getting some roots. Look at this guy, huge leaf. And then these as well. So these are Thanksgiving cacti as well, starting to root. I have them just sitting in some leca. So starting to root. And then this one actually has a flower bud, but I think it's gonna drop the flower, but yeah, so if you ever do try to propagate these, you need at least 2 phylloclades. You need at least 2, because usually this bottom part may root, and then it's going to shrivel up and die off, or it starts to shrivel up and die off and the roots actually come out from there. So you want to have at least, so these look like little Mickey Mouse. Okay. But they're starting to root, they're starting to get roots. But this guy really starting to get all those roots. You could see all of the roots, so large. But yeah, a lot of roots. So yeah, I still propagate during the winter. So so you can definitely do so. With the flowering of your holiday cacti too, just keep note, if you do buy them at the store and it's full of buds and looks absolutely gorgeous, if you keep your home pretty warm, it actually prompts them to drop their flowers. The same if you keep them in a really bright, you give them extra light during this time. And so just remember that Thanksgiving and Christmas cacti, they're triggered to flower by less light and cooler temperatures. And so cooler temperatures is like 65 to 70. So if you bring them home and you put them, let's say in like a southern window, or you have grow lights, you might notice that they start dropping their flowers, or sometimes even drop the buds before they even have a chance to bloom. And if you keep your home very warm, if it's like 80 degrees in the house, even 75 to 80, you'll notice that they'll also drop their flowers. So just keep that in mind. If you see one at the store and you really want to bring it home, you would have to put it in a spot where it can get natural light, but they prefer, bright indirect light. And again, they want less light during this time of year, and then not as much warmth. So 65, 70 is comfortable for them, and they'll keep blooming for you. But if you warm them up really quickly, they will drop their flowers for you, which is unfortunate. I don't think this flower is going to bloom. So I think it takes a lot of energy for flowers to bloom. And if it's putting its energy into trying to create roots here, more than likely it's going to drop that flower bud. It's not even going to expend that extra energy, because it's going to be much more focused on creating roots and establishing itself that way. But I'll keep you updated. I'm gonna put these guys in some back in their leca, because that's how I like to propagate my my succulent propagations. Yeah, they're awesome. I have a bunch of soil all over my desk now. I'm gonna have to clean all this up, but yeah, there's quite a bit of work to do with these plants, cleaning some of these guys up, the new guys, dealing with that mealybug infestation on that plant. Thankfully, it's not on any other plants. So, and that one's by itself, like in a whole just side of a bookshelf all by itself. So I'm not worried about that. But yeah, we have a lot of prep work to do since we're going to be in Costa Rica for 3 weeks. So I will be tuning in, but I will be tuning in from Costa Rica. And so I'm gonna miss my plants. We're gonna miss the animals. But yeah, we're gonna be spending our Christmas and our New Year's with my mom, celebrating her birthday. Her birthday's the day after Christmas. So so we're gonna enjoy that. Synth, when did you start your love of plants and the collection? Yeah, from my mom. So my grandmother and my great grandmother, I was very lucky. My grandmother essentially raised us. My mother and my father worked, and so my mom she went back to work when I turned 1, and so my grandma became basically like my babysitter while my mom was working. So I spent my days with my grandmother, and then my great grandmother came from Costa Rica and stayed several years with us too. So I was very lucky to have, all several generations helping to raise my brother and I. And so yeah, they imbued this love of nature. My great grandmother and my grandmother were both lovers of nature. So my grandmother was always taking us to the park and showing us flowers and sitting under the trees and enjoying that. But her thing is her house was covered in floral decorations and fake plants. But she always said she loved plants so much, but she hated that she would watch them die. So she hated people giving her bouquets. She would tell them, if you're going to give me a bouquet, give me like the silk bouquets, because she hated watching them die. And so she absolutely hated that. So while her house was full of plants, they were all fake. And and I grew up with that. And she always said she wished, she had more of a green thumb. But she loved plants. Her house was completely covered in plant decorations. But my mother does have a green thumb. And so here, in our apartment, and this is the apartment I grew up in. And so it was full of plants. She had her pothos that she had growing along the walls and things like that. And so she had her plants, not as many as I have, but she had quite a few. And I just loved it. And then I went to a vocational high school for agriculture. And so then that started getting me really interested in like different families of plants. So I started kind of learning more about the science, and that was really attractive. And then going into college, when I was focusing on biology and ecology, that's when I started to kind of get some plants. Then I moved out, and then when my mother decided to retire and move back to Costa Rica, she was like, "Do you want to take the apartment?" So we were like, "Sure." So we moved back into the apartment, and at that time, I think early on in our marriage, my husband and we maybe at most had like 10 plants. I think about 10 plants. I think that was probably the most I had. And then in about 2016, 2017, I really started to obsess over euphorbia and ripsalis and peperomia. So I started buying them, and they're my favorite genera. So I started buying a lot of them. And then I started basically redecorating the home to fit in all those plants. And so I still remember when I had like 30 plants myself, and I was like, "Oh, this is a lot." And then 2017 to 2018, I started really getting into aeroids, so philodendrons, monstera. So I started to build up my collection, and then by 2018, I had hit 100 plants. Then it was like I guess end of 2017, beginning of 2018. I had a really bad thrip infestation in the bathroom, so it took out my Syngonium collection, but I was still around 100 plants at that point. Yeah, and then it just kept growing, and so I had about 200 and something plants. And then Brian, end of like 2019, beginning of 2020, Brian started, he got his first like Monstera, and he would get bonsais here and there, but he got his first Monstera, and then he started collecting aroids. So he started collecting philodendrons and Monsteras and alocasias. Brian loves alocasias. And so our collection started growing and growing and growing, and then now we're over 300. So yeah, it's been it wasn't, I know a lot of folks got into plants during the pandemic. So it was great to see that. It was great to see so many other people hopping into the hobby. But that definitely caused so much craziness in terms of pricing and availability, supply and demand. The pandemic really changed the hobby, really changed the hobby. But it was really interesting to see. So many plants, like I always say, when I see plants that are either super cheap now, and I had remembered paying so much for them previously, or vice versa, where I used to get a plant I could find a plant for like 10-15 bucks, and now I'm seeing people sell it for 50. So it's cool to have that perspective, because I've been in the hobby for a while, so it's fun to see the changes. Yeah, not all of them are good, but it's cool to see. But yeah, but thanks so much, everyone, for joining in. It's always really fun to start off my Mondays with everyone. Please enjoy your holiday if you're celebrating. I hope you have a safe one. And if you're traveling, safe travels. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I will see you next week. Please stay safe, everyone. Enjoy the food. and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And yes, thanks so much to you too. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. I hope that the week is a really pleasant one. So stay safe, everyone. I'll see you next Monday. Bye.